morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to On This Date. On This Date is a channel where I will discuss past and present murders, disappearances, or anything true crime related. On This Date is a place where we can remember the ones that we lost and still keep looking for the ones that were never found. And today, I would like to bring you back to June 4th, 2010, and talk about a little boy named Kyron Horman. And on this day, Kyron just disappeared out of his Skyline Elementary School, never to be seen again, still to this day. Now, who was Kyron Horman? Again, Kyron was 7 years old, and Kyron was obsessed over true crime and science. Desiree, Tony, his stepfather, and Kyron would sit around watching forensic files and different crime shows. Kyron's dreams were to grow up and be a detective, just like his stepfather, Tony. However, little did Kyron or his family know that the shows that they sat around and watched and enjoyed would now be their sad reality. That every day, Desiree would be dealing with the loss of her son, day in and day out, with seemingly no answers. She is left with just speculation and wondering and searching. Desiree was quoted saying, quote, "It's like a portal just opened up in the school and Kyron just vanished into it," end quote. And on this day, June 4th, 2010, Kyron's stepmother, Terry Moulton Horman, brought him to school for a science fair. And Kyron was proud of his project. He was accomplished and feeling really good, and he wanted Terry to see it. He was excited to show it off to her. So that morning, they set off in Kane, Kyron's father's Ford F-250 pickup truck. And this was different than most days because Kyron usually rode the bus to school. Also, Terry took Kane's truck that morning instead of her fancy red Mustang. So that's just something different we can note. As they set off down the road that early morning, I'm sure Kyron was excited and bragging about his science project and so excited to show it off. Probably excited to walk around the other classrooms and see the other kids' projects. That morning at 8:45, Kyron and Terry arrived at school. Kyron then brought Terry to see his project, which she ends up taking a picture of him, and I will insert it. What a cute little boy, and he was so proud. And that morning he was wearing his black, it was like a black t-shirt, and it had CSI on it and some other little symbols on it. And that was a shirt that he got from like a criminal science exhibit. And I believe it was reported he went with his stepfather, Tony, and Desiree to that. And so he had that shirt on and he was excited and he smiled ear to ear, excited to show off his project. So as she snapped that photo and they finished up, they both headed down the hallway. And at this point, Terry states that Kyron took off down the hallway from her, going to a second stairwell that entered up to the second floor, and the one she was standing in front of, she then decided to go up. So they kind of like split ways and went up two separate stairwells to the second floor. At this point, she states that she got up to the top, she waved to him, and she physically seen him go into his classroom. Now, this will be disputed later on whether she could have seen him fully, if she actually seen him. Part of this is because Terry and her own kind of contradictions throughout, as you will see, have kind of led people to now call out every fine detail, which they should. None of her story makes sense from that day. So that will be scrutinized later on down the road as well. The actual location of what her story and what she is saying is accurate. And before we really get into a lot and discuss this whole case, I would love to know you guys' opinion. So down in the comment section below, do you think Terry's innocent after hearing everything? Or are you familiar with the case and you've listened to the Dr. Phil interviews, maybe some other podcasts on them, any kind of information you've done on your own? And do you come to a different kind of conclusion? Because in my opinion, I do think that Terry did something with Kyron that day. And if she didn't do something nefarious to him, I guess murder, then I just feel like she had some kind of involvement. Did that mean giving him to another family? Did that mean selling him? Which is not a great option either. So from my research, I feel very strongly that Terry knows where Kyron is at, whether or however that situation may look. So I'm open to always hear your arguments or your opinions down below. So if you would like, leave a comment down below and what you believe. Is Terry guilty or not guilty? So as much as I don't want to focus on Terry and give her more attention, I feel like she is a big part of this potentially missing puzzle piece, right? I kind of feel like getting a little background for her and talking about her would be good to know. So it kind of puts into perspective different things with her character and behaviors that she has. So although she wasn't known to be violent, she's kind of known as like a secretive person in a way. A secret, cunning, like con man is how I've kind of interpreted her. Just use and get what she wants and move on. So it seems Terry's a little bit more obsessed over herself than anywhere else, like her appearance and how things look too as well. Terry displayed these traits from kind of a young age. Terry was born in 1970 and she was adopted by 2 school teachers. And in 1982, they moved to Roseburg, Oregon. And through this time, she would kind of brag about her family and kind of make them seem more prominent than they were. So I'm not to say that they weren't good people. I didn't do enough research about them to really know. I just know that it was stated that she really kind of gravitated towards that and thought it was more like a prominent kind of position and viewed herself as also kind of better than everybody else because of that. As Terry would go on, she was kind of like just a regular kid, I guess. And in high school, she would excel in track and basketball. And the track coach was commented saying that it's because of her dad. Her dad has put a lot of work into her. So I guess she was very successful at track and basketball through those years. So come her senior year, she starts dating a man named Richard Inker. And they don't really last for long, and they end up becoming kind of like good friends, I guess. And so much so to the point that Richard is actually in her first wedding. So that brings us to 1991. And this is when Terry marries Ron. They move to Albany, where they run a local storage facility, and they also buy a franchise in a restaurant. They buy into a franchise, into a restaurant called Chubby's. But by 1994, it's reported that there is a settlement paid out for $250,000. And that's because Terry and her parents had stated that they were given kind of like a failing business. So at that point, they sued and they were awarded that kind of money. Also in 1994, Terry then has her first son named James. And James was born in January. But by November, Terry was like already filing for divorce. And she claims that Ron had multiple affairs is what led to, I guess, the divorce. I guess we'll never know. Again, I think Terry's manipulative, so maybe he cheated on her, maybe not. I don't know. In November, she ends up moving out with James and in with her parents. At this point, after moving in with her parents, she files for full custody. She is living with the baby now in her parents' house, and in January of that following year, she starts attending a McDonald's management college program. And with that, she starts working at a McDonald's in Cottage Grove. And at some point, she reconnects with Richard, who, remember, was her high school boyfriend. So in 1996, her and Richard moved to Springfield, and they get married somewhere on a beach, and I've seen it reported, but it's bad enough that we're here talking about Terry, so do we really care where she got married? No. I mean, I don't. So about 2 years later, we have Richard, and he adopts James. So Richard states in this time period of the 2 years that Terry was involved in a car accident where she was hit by a drunk driver. And she begins to suffer really bad migraines and headaches. And it kind of changed her personality a little bit. And just saying that, she was a little bit more difficult to deal with. But, the car accident, that didn't stop good old Terry, so I'm being sarcastic. Terry decides she's going to go back to college. And I just want to throw this out here. Terry will go back to college a couple more times throughout this story. And she never has a full-time teaching position. It's always just a substitute, and not to take away from any substitutes, but Terry just made herself look more important by doing very minimal, I feel like. So just kind of like half-assing doing teaching. And again, I'm not saying any substitutes half-ass doing work, but she goes to school for all this, but she never has a full-time positions. She just substitutes here and there all over the place. Really no kind of like career path idea, I guess. So at this point, though, while she's going to college, it's Richard's parents who are fronting the bill. They are paying for her to go to college, but Richard was actually supposed to go to college. But of course, Terry throws a fit, gets her way, so now her college is being paid for, and Richard kind of gets put on the back burner. In 2000, she gets her teaching license, and in 2001, she buys her first home with the assistance of her parents. A month later, in March, she gets her first substitute teaching position at Hillsborough School District. And at 2002, she gets another job with another school. People would report her as a good teacher, but she was very strict. But really, that's all they really had to say about her. Nothing bad, surprisingly, just that she was strict. So I'm not sure what happens with her and Richard in this period of time, because now she is packing her bags and she's done with Richard. So she decides she's done. She moves in with another teacher who at that time is also going through a divorce, which this poor lady, she was going through a divorce herself, and then lets Terry move in, and Terry's not such a good roommate. So it starts out with just Terry rearranging her apartment, which the lady obviously gets mad about. And then it starts with Terry moving, I guess I should say it ends with, because then Terry moves out. It ends with Terry moving her stuff out reportedly in the rain, to the point that the lady's stuff gets ruined. When the lady asks her what happened, Terry kind of acts like it's no big deal, and why is she questioning her idea? So obviously, I guess that did not last long. And again, just another victim in Terry's sick web. Just somebody else to use, walk all over, and be done with. So in 2002, Terry and Richard's divorce is finalized, and this is when she decides she's going to bring him for child support. Keep in mind that Richard is the adopted father, and I understand that by adopting a child, you're taking on responsibility for that child. I just think it's a crappy move on Terry's part. However, she brings Richard to court for child support, and what is awarded $169 at the time is now bumped up a year later to $550, because that's not good enough for Terry. So as the child support gets bumped up, Richard decides that he's going to call Terry and maybe like play on her heartstrings, thinking that if he tells her, I cannot afford this, like this is going to destroy me. Literally, I cannot financially afford this. She will maybe consider letting him make a payment arrangement, which I think it was reported that that's what he was trying to do, is more like just pay it. But Richard's just too much of a nice guy, if you're asking me. But anyway, he was just going to pay it, but would like to do it in payments because he was struggling, obviously. But Terry tells him, Terry tells him it's okay, and then decides that she's going to call the state police and file harassment charges against Richard. Yeah, she's a real winner. I also want to add that during this time period when Richard and her separated, she did not allow him to see James anymore. Just pay her and no visitation. I'm not for sure why maybe Richard didn't fight for visitation. Maybe he was just sick of dealing with Terry, and maybe the only way he thought he could visit with James was to have to deal with Terry, and maybe he was just sick of this woman and wanted to be done completely. So I don't blame him in that sense as well either. So now we have 2002 coming to an end, and this is where Terry meets Kane. And this is Kyron's father. So Terry meets Kane, and at the time, Kane and Desiree are married. And the disgusting part is that it's reported, allegedly, that Desiree contracted an STD while she was pregnant, which caused her a lot of complications. And she suffered those because her husband was cheating with Terry. Yeah, Terry was cheating with a baby on the way. Yeah. Kane's not innocent either in the cheating. Everything else, totally 100%, my heart goes out to Kane. He's his father of Kyron, and Kyron's missing. And it's absolutely tragic. And I'm sure he didn't predict that having an affair and meeting some woman was going to result in his child disappearing. However, this kind of behavior, not so good. So Kane and Terry just carry on, and Desiree starts to get suspicious, obviously, and this is a lot after Desiree had some medical procedures she needed to do in Canada. And at this point, Terry moves herself into the house and is helping raise Kyron. This lady Terry just is a homewrecker. She took an opportunity, she's seen it, and moved herself right on in, and all under the guise as she's helping Desiree. And you may hear that Terry and Desiree were friends. They were not friends. And I'm going to tend to believe Desiree when she states numerous times that she was not friends with Terry. And Terry shouldn't be saying she was friends with Desiree, because I don't know what kind of friends do that. But to each his own, I guess. And Terry and her delusional thinking, I suppose. Or the appearance that they were friends, which actually Terry's kind of more stupid, because if they were actually friends and she did it, it'd make it even worse. But again, it's Terry and her logic, so that's the story she's concocted in her head. However, moving on. So Desiree starts to get suspicious, and so Desiree starts searching the house. Desiree comes across paperwork from Terry, and this is a checklist, essentially. This is saying how Kane should leave Desiree. Terry has gave him like a checklist, like you need to take care of the bank accounts, the IRAs, child custody, all this stuff. Like her basically coaching him on how to leave his wife. Like, I guess from her previous experiences of being divorced, she has like some kind of knowledge, or she thinks she's like smart. I don't know. Anyway, so Desiree finds this, and this, confirms that he is cheating. And all good women do, usually they find out, right? So she did. She pulled a little detective move herself, and she found the truth. And when she found that truth, she filed for divorce, and she moved her stuff into the spare bedroom of their home, which Terry was sneaking in at night to see Kane. And shame on Kane, and shame on Terry. Absolutely disgusting. And just to know what Desiree has been through with Terry particularly, and her own husband, and that's a battle I'm sure she works out with herself or with him, and they will sort through those things. But it's unbelievable. So after all this, Desiree decides that she's obviously not going to stay in the house, and she moves. She, that morning, packs her stuff, and as she's leaving with the U-Haul truck, she sees Terry waiting at the end of the driveway with her own U-Haul truck. And that's because the moment Desiree pulled out, Terry moved in. So here we go to 2003, and we have Kane and Terry now playing house in Desiree and Kane's once marital house. The fact that she has no class at all, couldn't even wait till Desiree was like an hour gone. She's waiting at the end of the driveway. I think I would have had to say something, but props to Desiree again, because I think she was just over it. And you know what? It wasn't worth her time to sit here and bicker back and forth with some loser that just wants a husband that cheated on her. So she's probably gonna do the same to you, Terry, but you do you, girl. So around 2003 to 2006, in about that time period, now Terry's getting obsessed over the gym. and going back to school. Terry begins taking supplements and like stimulants and actual drugs to enhance her fitness performance. And so with that, Kane states that she became very self-centered, aggressive, and that she lost 62 pounds in 4 months. That she was like on this die-hard fitness kick, right? And her goal in all this is she wanted to enter a fitness competition. So I seen here that she placed 4th in the Emerald World competition. I'm sorry, Emerald Cup fitness competition. And she placed 4th, but apparently that wasn't good enough for Terry, so she decided that she was done with the gym right now. And so the next habit she decides to pick up is the drinking habit. So in 2005, I guess shortly after the whole gym incident, she gets pulled over, and she gets pulled over and blows a .15, and that would make her almost double the legal limit. And the kicker to all this is that not only was she putting her own life, other people's lives, and her son's life in risk, because she had James in the car with her at the time, her son. But Terry didn't care. She was driving drunk, almost double the legal limit. But for this, Terry just gets a charge of reckless endangerment. So now a couple years go by, 2007, and her and Kane get married, and they have their first daughter together named Kiara. And after Kiara's arrival, Kane says that Terry became very hateful, even more than like before when she was taking the stimulants. Now she's kind of like drinking, and she's just becoming a problem, right? She's just taking out her aggression and anger on everybody but Kiara. Kiara seems to be treated as the favorite. And I mean, it's kind of blatantly obvious, because in 2009, she even sends her son James away. She calls Kane on a business trip and says that she is calling James's father and that she's fed up with him. He's got to go, whatever. She has issues, and she's, I guess, not going to take like this disrespect, right? So Kane probably says to her, like, what do you want me to do? I'm X amount of hours away. They hang the phone up, and the next thing you know is he's getting home and there's no James to be seen. And that's because Terry decided that she was going to ship her son to her mother and father's house. Yeah, just got rid of her son. And it's really not stated why she did this. Maybe she had a couple little behavioral issues with him. He's 11, he's a kid. I don't know, I just thought it was very, very, very strange. So after she sends away her son, James, she starts increasing the, I guess, meanness and the need to be in control against Kyron. And at this point, she was asking the teacher to send her a daily report on Kyron's behavior. There would be like flipping your card chart, like color chart, I'm sorry. So like green, red, blue, yellow, right? Something to that effect. And as a child would misbehave or maybe not raise their hand or be talking or disruptive, I think it starts as a warning. My daughter did this similar thing when she was young. She is now 18 years old, so I'm trying to think back all that time ago. When I was a child, we did like recess on the board, and if we were all bad, we just all suffered. And as soon as it was all erased, we were not all going out for recess. Unless you were really bad, they'd call your parents, but we didn't really do that kind of system. So as Kyron's teacher would do that system, if he was flipped his card at all, the teacher was to give her daily reports. And this is not the same as the other parents. Each parent received a weekly report, but Terry had to have the daily report. And so this became a problem in the household, because every time Kyron would bring home something other than a good card or a good report, I guess, she would then want Kane to punish Kyron. And the way that I interpret it was that Kane didn't feel he needed to be punished. He was kind of like just being a kid, right? And had understanding that it's not even easy for us adults sometimes to sit here. I may sit down to film this video and it may take me 10 times because I lost focus, or maybe I got off topic with something. So Kane really didn't see the reason to punish Kyron for just being a regular child, but here we go with Terry and her control. So she wanted something to be done. So once Kane would not punish Kyron, this would spark huge arguments in the house, obviously, and a lot of resentment, probably on both sides, right? Because Terry wants Kane to do something about it. He's not doing something about it. And Kane's probably starting to resent her, like, why are you treating my child like this? And all the meantime, Desiree is picking up on this. Desiree even states at this point that she felt like Terry was maybe using her son James before he left to kind of torment Kyron. Like, I think I seen something about they were out in the woods, or James kind of lured Kyron to the woods, and at that point he acted like they were lost. And it scared Kyron because Kyron was just a shy, like, kind of reserved little boy, and so it scared him. And he's also 7, like, and it's the woods. I'm scared of the woods, so I don't blame him. So I guess James kind of like freaked him out, and there was another incident where he kind of jumped and broke something like a barn gate, something like that, in front of Kyron. And Desiree felt like Terry was almost like telling James to do these things, right? Like acting out these mean things with her like authority, like forcing him almost to do these things, right? So Desiree was picking up on all this, but again, I'm sure it was hard for her as well too. It's a rough dynamic when you have a step parent. I am engaged. We do not have those issues, so I can only imagine. My kid's father, their other part is not involved, so I don't have that other person also parenting my child, because I don't even let my fiance parent my child. So I would have a hard time with letting my child go with someone, and then how do you say something, right, without it being an argument with Terry, because Terry does not seem approachable or like she's open to listen. And I don't know how Desiree would bring this up to her without it probably causing an argument, right? She's just going to be defensive. So really what gets solved? And then as a mother, you're almost worried, is she taking it out more now on your child because you said something, right? So it's very hard, and we know that the courts don't always do their jobs or follow up with those kind of things, right? So I can understand like Desiree's mindset and position in all this, and again makes it more tragic because it's so sad that Terry, for some reason, like wanted to cause punishment to Desiree and Kane with their son. It just makes no sense to me, how a mother herself could be this cruel to just, he's an innocent little boy, whether or not she's jealous or whatever over Desiree, which I think she was jealous over Desiree, whether or not the situation, it's still a child. He's just innocent. Like, if she's that upset over Desiree, curse Desiree out. I don't know. Do what you need to, but it's almost more sick, right? Because to me, Terry, this is more calculated, and this is more meant to hurt, right? This is to take her little boy away. And so she is left wondering, and now Terry just feels like, haha, now you're suffering, right? So it's, to me, even more evil than just the cheating and all the other stuff that has went on. Let's go back. So we were at June 4th, and we have Kyron and Terry at the school. Terry states that she drops Kyron off. Now we have Kane and Kiara waiting at the bus stop for Kyron to get off the bus. Kane does not see Kyron. At this point, he calls the school. The school doesn't, so Kane rushes over there to the school. They look all around the school. They can't find him. And at this point, the school calls state police and says that Kyron is missing. They call Desiree. They see with her, but Desiree is hours away, and so is Tony. They actually live hours away, and they were at work. So no one has seen him. So as soon as Desiree hears this, she hurries up and she jumps in the car, and she even states that Terry never called her, that it was the school's how she found out her son was missing. Kane didn't call, Terry didn't call either. She had no clue until the school called. And that's why Terry was like kind of on Desiree's radar as well too. Like she was already suspicious of her, and so these circumstances just made her more suspicious of her. So the state police arrive at Skyline Elementary School and they start a coordinated search around 8 p.m. that night. And 8 p.m. they search everywhere around that school, every crevices they could get into in the building. They could not find Kyron anywhere. So at 10:45, they then announced that they had not found anything at all. And all while the search was going on, Desiree ends up going back over to Terry and Kane's house. That way they can kind of like all be together. So that way when the detectives come, that they can speak to them as a whole, as a group. So as they're sitting there talking and Desiree's kind of taking in what's going on, she's noticing that Kiara is acting weird towards Terry, kind of like standoffish, almost like she's mad at her. Like Desiree picks up on it and thinks it's almost like she seen something and was like, I know what you did to my brother, and was upset with her. And also said that Terry's behavior was weird. She wasn't upset. She was just running around acting like a good hostess would. Like it was very, very strange. Now, however, Kane was distraught. Kane was upset, obviously looking for his son. And this was not the reaction of Terry. So as Terry, Kane, Desiree, and Tony, Desiree's husband, are back over at Terry's, the detectives come by. And the detectives now want to collect their phones and get their alibis. So they get Kane's, Terry's, so they get Kane, Desiree, and Tony's alibi. And they also get their phones. Now, Terry has an issue with wanting to give her phone up, which she does end up giving the phone up, but she had an issue with it and trying to ask when she was going to get it back and just kind of being difficult about it. Like she didn't want to give it up, but obviously she had no choice, right? So after they get the phones, they then question Terry on her alibi. And the reason why I didn't really take too much time on the three others, Desiree, Tony, and Kane, is because their alibis were rock solid. They were at work. They were hours away, all of them. Kane was on a business trip, which should be confirmed. And Desiree and Tony were also at work hours away, which was easily confirmed. So Terry obviously is the last one who's seen Kyron, so they need to really go through her day now, right? She's scrutinized. They need to know her exact movements through that day. So they start going over Terry's alibi. So Terry's alibi goes something like this. It is stated that she went to a Fred Meyer's once because her daughter was very sick, Kiara, and she needed this Motrin. So Terry went to this first Fred Meyer's, but there was no Motrin. So she went to a second Fred Meyer's where she just got the Motrin, but the Motrin was never found later on in the investigation. Also, at any points that she was pulling into places, she was pulling far away from the entrance, like almost purposely avoiding the surveillance. And when she was also questioned about this, she stated that that's what her husband Kane does. Now, when the detective spoke with Kane, Kane said that that's not true. That's not where he parks his vehicle. So again, another lie and an odd lie at that, right? So at this point, she says that she went to Home Goods, and then she also went to the laundromat where she went to go drop her laundry off, and that the line was too long. When they questioned the people at the laundromat, they say that it was actually slow that day and that there was no line, that there could not have been any line she was waiting in. So that was another lie as well. Also stating that, she was in the Home Goods and no one ever knows or seen her there. And I seen something funny on this podcast, and she said that I know that's a lie because if you go to Home Goods, you're definitely going to buy something. You never walk out empty-handed. So right there, I automatically know it's a lie. I just thought it was funny, but moving on. So after this, Fred Meyer's 2 times and her miscellaneous little trips in between, she then says that she was at the gym at 12:20. Or no, I'm sorry, at 11:40. And when the police officers go to verify her timeline there, they see her key card wasn't scanned until 12:20. And so she's there, they ask her, what's the time discrepancy about with the times from the time Fred Meyer's here to there? And she goes, well, I was driving around because my daughter was so sick and I had to get her to go to sleep, right? Which does not make sense because she only went to the gym for 22 minutes. Now, she claims her daughter was sick, right? And if any of you know, if you have to drive around to get your baby to go to sleep, are you then going to stop to risk waking it up to bring it into a gym daycare that is loaded with germs if she's so sick, right? She's probably cranky, she's probably moody, she's probably clingy. Like, you know how they are when they're sick, they just want to be up on your chest. So you're telling me that she thought it was a good idea to bring the baby to a daycare. Not to mention, like, there's other people's kids there and you're just getting them sick, but whatever. Um, so this is her excuse. That's why she only stayed 22 minutes, right? She ends up leaving, and the 22 minutes was spent because there wasn't actually a daycare, and I don't think I touched on that, but there's a daycare inside of the gym, and that's where she had Kiara at. So that was her alibi for the day. And about 2 a.m. that night, Desiree and Kane, they headed to the command center, and that was at the Skyline Elementary School. And at that point, Desiree stated her suspicions about Terry and her behavior and how she felt that she could be holding something back and could have done something to her son. By 5 a.m., a new search was done, and by 12 p.m., the sheriff had announced that it was still a missing person and that it had not reached a level of criminal investigation. And during this search, they looked for 2 more miles around the school and nothing turned up. And I seen somewhere about an anonymous tip being called in even to check an area that some kids were known to frequent close to the school. They went and checked that area and he was not there as well. And at this time, the detectives are also doing phone pings, or searches of the phones, I'm sorry. And so they're receiving that there was pings on I hope I don't butcher this, Save, we're going to say island. Or Savi, I think it is. I'm so sorry. Very hard. It's spelled Sauvie. So Savi. So Savi Island. And these phone pings came from Terry's vehicle, which they were wondering because this island is off of Highway 30. If Terry could have disposed of Kyron, it would be a perfect spot because the ocean was right there, the Pacific Ocean. So that island actually funneled out to the Pacific Ocean. And they were thinking, like, could she have done something with Kyron and threw him into there? And what's weird is, too, that I didn't note this before, but there was someone that was questioned from the gym from the day that Terry came there, the day with Kiara when she was sick, and that was her alibi, right? A witness stated that when she talked to Terry, that Terry's leg was like kind of gashed, and so when lady asked her, Terry stated that she dropped a weight on her leg, and that's why her leg had that mark. However, the witness stated that it looked more like going through brush, right? Like that kind of slice, not a cut resulting in a weight falling on you, which doesn't make sense anyways, but that it looked like it could have been a cut from a branch as well. So that was another thing that I'm sure detectives had in the back of their mind if they already knew that at that time. And another thing that turned up while they were searching good old Terry's phone was a murder for hire plot. Yeah. This is why I say I'm not just a fan of Terry, and I'm just not disliking her for no reason. She's a piece of work. So the police, while doing the phone scan and finding the pings and all this stuff, then come across a murder for hire plot. And what they believe to be that with her landscaper, Rodolfo Sanchez. And allegedly, according to what I read, she had a murder for hire plot and she was supposed to pay Rodolfo $10,000. Now, police did try to wire Rodolfo up and have him confront Terry, like, not really confront, but like try to get her to talk on thing. However, She was obviously suspicious because Kyron was missing at this point, and with Rodolfo coming to her now, she's not that stupid. She just gave her phone up, and then all of a sudden you have this guy coming to her. She's being questioned over a disappearance of a 7-year-old little boy. If she actually would have followed through, then I would have thought she was dumb, because she still does dumb things that you wouldn't expect someone to be a grieving mother, as she puts it, of Kyron. So they end up finding that about Rodolfo and the murder for hire plot. And so they obviously were bust at the wire, but they go ahead and let Kane know. So Kane kind of has an idea what's going on, right? They don't have enough proof, but they kind of let him know what's going on. And so that way he can take measures and be safe himself. So while this is all going on and police are conducting their phone searches and the investigations into kind of like searching through their phones and where they've been, they were releasing flyers out, and the family was putting a bunch all around for Kyron. Also, billboards were donated from Clear Channel Communications as well for Kyron's safe return, and they were the missing posters but put onto like the billboards. So they would have a picture of Kyron, the truck, and actually Terry. With him missing, they would have missing flyers of Kyron with and without glasses, and just his glasses, what he was wearing, and all the details regarding his looks and age and different characteristics to be on the lookout for. So on Sunday morning, police conducted interviews with all the staff from the school as well, and the parents that day. So starting from 9:30 to about 4, they were interviewing the people that were known to be there on that day of the science fair. And no, there was no login. There was just kind of parents going in and out, doing their child's projects and then leaving. There was no kind of like formal how it would be on a normal day. And by 9 p.m. that night, the case was upgraded to a missing and endangered. Federal, state, and local agencies followed up to 1,200 tips, also going door to door and questioning any known sex offenders in the area and running license plates. On June 10th, police moved back to their search of Sauvie Island because of the phone pings coming from Terry's phone. Now, they did not find Kyron or any evidence like we had went over. At 1 p.m. on June 10th, a press conference is held, and this is where Tony speaks on behalf for Kane, Terry, and Desiree. And Terry is seen in this holding Desiree, grabbing her, looking at the camera. You can tell it's all for show. Like, everybody can see through you, Terry. She's pretending to cry, but yet there's no tears coming from Terry at all. However, they continue with their press conference where Tony continues to plead for his son's safe return. And at 3 p.m., a $25,000 reward is issued for any information leading to Kyron's whereabouts. Police also stated that parents should not be fearful for their own child. And now you can interpret this however you would like. I just feel like if the police are saying there's no immediate danger to the public and parents, you don't have to watch your kids, doesn't that kind of mean they know it's not a stranger abduction and they're leaning towards someone, allegedly? That's just my thoughts on it. And on June 14th, a team would conduct a search again at Sauvie Island, and a search near their actual home where a pond was. So a pond close to Terry and Kane's house, they decided to go ahead and search for him there. On June 18th, the police released a missing poster of Kyron, Terry in the F-250 pickup truck, and asked if anybody had spotted Terry, Kyron, or the pickup truck, or all of them together. Also, they released a questionnaire, and this was saying for any parents, delivery persons, etc., and that was at the school on June 4th to answer the questions and return it to law enforcement, even if you had already been interviewed. After this press conference and release of the form, they asked Terry to come back in for a second polygraph because she had failed the first one. And she got up and pretty much walked out of the second one and said that she refused, and telling Kane that she was not to blame and she wasn't going to do this. So on June 19th, a third attempt is made to polygraph her yet again, and it is later reported that she failed that one. So 2 out of 3 polygraphs, Terry did fail. On June 28th, Terry was served with divorce papers and a restraining order, protection against her daughter, Kiara. Kane did not want Terry anywhere near Kiara. He stated that he believed the police when they said about the murder for hire plot, and he also believed that Terry knew more than what she was saying about her son's disappearance, and adding that her alcoholism was not good for their 18-month-old daughter. July 8th, Kane asked the judge to have Terry move out, and the only way the judge would approve this is she would have to move out on the 22nd, and if he wanted her out any sooner, Terry said that Kane would have to pay for her to leave. So Kane obviously declined, and then eventually she moves out. So, but a few days later of leaving the home, she decides to start sexting a man named Michael Cook. And Michael Cook was a friend of Kane's, I guess, from high school. I don't know how close they were prior to that. If you ask Terry, she'll say it was a setup from Kane on her Dr. Phil interview. When Dr. Phil asks her why she started a romantic relationship so quick after her stepson disappeared, and she states that it's because Kane set her up. So he had, I guess, Michael come and seduce her, or text her and seduce her, or I don't really know. You know, one of Terry's just really stupid stories she comes up with, and says it on national TV, no less. Anyway, so Terry started talking to him. They were first as friends, but it quickly moved into romantic things. And, well, I don't know if I would say romantic. I would say more like very cringy high schooler sexting. For a grown woman, Terry is extremely cringy, and these text messages were wild. Terry's talking about sucking a golf ball through a hose. There's more. I just don't feel like getting into it, and again, giving her too much attention. But when I heard the story and then seen the text, I just thought I had to add in the golf ball one. So coming into August, we have a grand jury convene, and they call many of Terry's friends and family to testify. And one particular friend is Dee Dee Spicer. Dee Dee Spicer, one of those like ride or die friends, and she has not been cooperative and also has a sketchy alibi from the day of Kyron's disappearance. And it's really convenient because on that day that Kyron goes missing, obviously they park super far away from any camera surveillance. So even if Dee Dee was in the car, you couldn't see her because you couldn't see anything because Terry had been parked so far away from surveillance because, you know, remember, her husband parked far away is what she said. Oh, yeah, it just blows my mind. And also at the school, I want to bring up, I was just thinking about this too as well. A lot of you may be questioning, did someone see her leaving the school with Kyron? And again, she was parked far away from the entrance there. And what's also crazy is that there is witnesses that state they watched her and Kyron exit the school building that day together. And those witnesses state that they seen her. They seen her, Kiara, and Kyron leaving together out of the school that morning. So again, it's just up to what you believe, because even though there's witnesses, we have no proof, no video footage, no real hard proof, just witnesses. August 2nd through the 6th, the detectives conducted more interviews. Members of her gym testified about how she complained about being a stepmother. And now on August 7th and 8th, they relocated their search, and they relocated it to where Dee Dee was gardening. And this is Germantown Road, close to the same complex, like the long area, I guess, that Dee Dee would have been working across, like that stretch of land. Again, conducted a search at Savvy Island and Skyline Elementary. At this time, Kane and Terry fought over custody over Kiara in their divorce proceedings, and Kane was not going to allow it, stating about her alcoholism again, and stating that he believes she knows what happened to his son and that Kiara could have possibly witnessed something very bad that day, and for her own protection, she needs to be away from Terry. The only way he would allow visitation is if she went for a mental competency hearing, like a mental evaluation to see what's going on with her, right? Well, Terry didn't apparently want to do that, because therefore, not shortly after, Terry withdrew her request to see her daughter. She couldn't even do a mental evaluation to see her own daughter. She would rather just abandon her, pretty much, the same as she did the other kids. Now heading into 2011, police announced the cost is going to be nearly over $1 million, with already spending about $300,000, and that they're going to decide that they need to scale down. They are also going to let the public know that in the last 6 months, they have done 646 searches across 100,000 acres of land. 40 witnesses were brought in front of a grand jury, followed 4,000 tips, and conducted 3,500 interviews. February 2011, police task force announced they were going to leave 6 FBI agents for the search. Moving into June, they then say that they will have to disband the task force, however, stating that they will leave FBI agents and other government agencies available to help them on this case. And now at this point, Desiree goes ahead and files a civil suit against Terry. And she states that it was custodial interference, and she seeks $10 million in damages. And Desiree was not after the money in all of this. Desiree was going to donate it to some kind of kids organization or something to help somebody. She wanted Terry to be held responsible in more of a court setting than Terry was being held responsible for. But unfortunately, in 2013, she ends up dropping the case. And she ends up dropping it because it could interfere with the criminal investigation, and she doesn't want anything to happen to all the hard work of the detectives and actually being able to bring her son back home and get justice for the person who has done something with her son. So she chooses to drop the suit against Terry at this point. Now, at some point, Terry and Kane, they go back to court again about custody. And this is where a reintegration plan is put in place. After going back and forth with Kane in court, she decides that she wants to change her name. Just like forget who she was and forget Kyron and the trouble she may face if the truth comes out. So she goes to court and she asks for a name change, and thank God the judge does not grant it. He tells her that basically it's an unsolved case, and that until they have answers that they're not going to basically give her what she wants. So she leaves, I'm sure not happy. But Terry just can't take no for an answer. So she then goes again and decides to file with a different county and a different judge for a name change, which she then gets denied, which, good. I'm glad she got denied. I actually would have been really mad if she got to change her name, but she does not. So 2015 comes along and Terry decides she's going to move to California. And things don't really go good for Terry. And over there, I mean, I guess they do, because again, she is never held accountable for anything. So at this point, she moves in with somebody and she steals their gun. And, you know, instead of Terry getting, you know, felony charges or something serious, Terry is just let off the hook with nothing, because the judge felt like she didn't mean to keep it. She wasn't going to keep it. She was going to give it back. I wonder if we all like stole something from the store and then we said we weren't planning on keeping it. We were just going to give it back. Would we go to jail? So she gets in trouble none whatsoever for that. Well, and then here we go. We moved down to December 2016. And this is where Terry's in trouble yet again for a possession of a stolen vehicle. And it's because she didn't have permission to take the vehicle. However, do you think Terry goes to jail for this? Nope. She actually gets acquitted because the judge, you know, doesn't feel that she took it without permission. I don't know what kind of voodoo tricks this lady pulls, but she's got some good ones that work for her, because she gets out of trouble all the time. Again, let's steal a car and then just, I guess if you bring it back, I don't know. Don't try it. I didn't say it works. Don't try it. Don't follow Terry's code of conduct or moral compass, I guess you should say. And Sean Ray ends up coming out through this, and he's an ex-boyfriend of Terry's. And he states that when they were dating 30 years ago, that they went to a park to eat Chinese, and he swears that Terry was going to have him killed. A man jumped out of the bushes at the park and pointed a gun at Sean, and that's when Terry looked at Sean and said, "He's here for you." So Sean got freaked out, ended up leaving her. I mean, rightfully so. I will leave her crazy ass too. But that's what happens. And again, you know, she doesn't get in trouble for anything, nothing at all. Through multiple lies, multiple searches, and multiple stories she's given, no one knows the truth about where Kyron is still to this day. I just cannot believe that the amount of searching and just public media knowledge and spread of word of this little boy, he just has not been found. And I really hope one day that Desiree gets the answers that she so desperately deserves. We can only hope and pray that either Kyron is found and we're provided with answers somehow, some way there. It's such a tragic case. And again, my heart goes out to Desiree, Kane, and Tony, and anybody who loved that little boy like their own. He was only 7 years old. He had so much to look forward to. And I feel like he would have been such a smart, intelligent, good member of society